Aquaculture is worth more than $800 million to Australia. It's one of the fastest growing industries in the country. A company based in Adelaide has contributed to that growth. It makes what it claims is the first off-the-shelf fish farming system which completely recycles its own water and produces what amounts to an organic fish. There's now a handful of the Fish Protech farms set up in South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland. And combined, they now account for about 90% of the plate-sized barramundi, which is sold through the country's largest fish market. By the time the sun rises over Blackwattle Bay, the buyers and sellers at the Sydney Fish Market have been awake for hours. This is the biggest fish market in the Southern Hemisphere. Worldwide, it is only second to Japan and is selling the largest range of seafood. Every day, a staggering 50 tonnes is auctioned here. Increasingly, it is grown in farms, not taken wild from the sea or river. Aquaculture, as an industry, is said to be worth over $800 million to Australia. And Mark Lee is part of the aquaculture feeding frenzy. Tucked in among the market gardens and shade houses of an area known as Waterloo Corner on the outskirts of Adelaide, Mark's shed full of hungry fish seems incongruous. But that's the beauty of on-land fish farming with the system Mark uses, a system called Fish Protech. It can be set up just about anywhere. With these particular units now operating in 3 states, their combined output accounts for well over half the barramundi sold through the Sydney Fish Market and almost 90% of the most sought-after plate-sized barra. Mark Lee produces more barramundi than anyone else.
We last year production 105 tonnes.
105 tonnes last year from this unit?
Yeah, from about 4 to 6 person. In Asian, in Taiwan, it's the 100 tonnes. Maybe we needed 20 person.
So you've managed to get away with 4 or 5 people compared to perhaps 20 if you're in Asia?
Yeah. Maybe more.
What impressed Mark about this system and what convinced him to spend around $5 million to set himself up as a fish farmer is the engineering behind this particular unit. That's because it was designed by an engineer, a man born in Holland who's worked all over the world on food sustainability, at one time with the United Nations. His name is Johan Don.
80 millimeter?
80 to 100.
All right.
The idea really started about 30 years ago. And when I was working in fish farms overseas, mainly as a consultant, and I saw so many problems with these fish farms. The use of chemicals, the use of very high energy consuming equipment, and also the problem was that nobody really could buy a complete fish farm to start a business.
The system Johan designed is said to be the world's only off-the-shelf fish farm with almost 100% recycling of water. It's energy efficient, relying not on pumps but on specific gravity to feed the water through, and it is completely chemical-free. Solid wastes are separated from the water and lifted from the sump through a drum filter, after which clean water returns to the farm modules. Aeration in the centre of the module saturates the water with oxygen and lifts it through the biofilter, which removes the ammonia and nitrate. In addition, an anaerobic digester sitting out the back of the main shed continually digests the solid waste.
This is the wastewater that is coming out of this tank, and it shows you that the waste is being removed and taken away to the anaerobic digester.
So there's not a lot of water that comes out of all these tanks?
Yes, because we are actually recycling the water inside the tank up to 97%, and this small amount is then treated in the anaerobic digester and then being reused again.
There's really only a handful of factors a potential fish farmer needs to set up this system. A lazy $1.5 million, half a hectare of land on which to build the shed, a supply of good quality bore water, 3-phase or generator power, and the ability to roll up your sleeves and work hard.
The uniqueness of the system is that it is engineered in such a way that it is commercially usable and very user-friendly. It took us a long time to get to that point. So when people want to start using equipment, normally they have to go out and buy a piece of equipment here and a piece of equipment there and stick it together, and the equipment usually doesn't match. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to have an integrated system. It's a bit like your motor car. All the parts fit in the right spots, and all the parts, of course, are designed to fit there. You can't buy a part from another motor car and fit it in. But that makes your motor car more efficient and more reliable. So we actually designed every single component in the system to work as a fully integrated system, and that makes it unique.
Once the farmer is all set up, the biggest expense is food. Mark Lee's staff prepare 50 kilograms a day, more than 10 tonne every month. Unlike in ponds and offshore tanks, there is very little of this tucker wasted. It's measured precisely. Mark Lee says he can afford to buy better quality fish pellets because he knows it will all go towards fattening his fish. In fact, quite remarkably, with barramundi grown this way, scientists have found a food conversion rate of better than 1:1. These barra grow a millimetre every day. Of course, they have no predators, and of the 230,000 fish in these tanks, there's about a 2% mortality. Contributing to the high survival rate is a system of screening that means diseased barramundi fingerlings never get to see the light of day. After the barra larvae are grown out in a hatchery, they're sent to a private laboratory which has a contract with the Primary Industries Department. Veterinary pathologist Dr. Ruth Reuter checks every batch of barra for signs of disease, particularly a deadly one called nodavirus.
Under the regulatory programs, each of the batches that are hatched are required to be tested about 21 to 42 days of age to make sure that this disease isn't present. So far in South Australia, we're relatively free of the disease.
The fingerlings arrive at Mark Lee's farm at less than 5 centimetres long. They'll grow out to dinner plate size, about 500 grams, over the next 4 to 5 months. In that period, the fish will be graded many times so that they are always with like-sized fish. Barramundi have a nasty habit of eating their smaller friends. Every step of this process is monitored to the nth degree. Mark knows down to the single fish how many are in each of his 32 tanks.
This one look like the play the game, play the chess.
Like playing chess?
Chess, because every 2 months, we need every 2 months, need the grader. But this one, just the 32 tank, just good. Every week, grader. Every day, grade. Turn around every day.
So every day you're grading out fish from these 32 tanks?
Yeah. So 2 person full-time grader. All day, all from the Monday to the Friday, grade.
Once the fish meet the target size, they're harvested from the grow-out basins and placed into a purging tank for several days. According to Johan Don, this differentiates these fish from others in the marketplace.
We've designed a post-harvest treatment system which will allow us to actually put the fish into water which is completely disinfected. So it's a continuous disinfection process. And also the fish are not fed during this time. It means that the fish, when they are actually harvested, after they have gone through a post-harvest treatment system, and by the time they go to the market, they have absolutely no bacteria in the fish. It means the shelf life is longer, it is healthier for the people, there's no salmonella, and no E. coli are present. We were exporting fish to the UK, to London, and when the fish arrives in London, they did tests, and they found even after we shipped them by air to London, the shelf life was a week better than the fish they were getting from Scotland.
Mark Lee and his wife Anne have tried selling to the export market. They found it wasn't worth the hassle. Some of their fish are sold live in Adelaide's Chinatown, but the vast majority of the 4,500 to 5,000 barramundi they harvest every week are packed in ice and sent off to Sydney.
Aquaculture barramundi buyers, they are from Lee Moot Side.
They're auctioned off to the highest bidder in a Dutch auction. That's where buyers press a button to register they want to buy a certain consignment of fish when the clock gets down to the price they're willing to pay.
Aquaculture barramundi.
This time, Mark Lee's barra sold for around the $9 a kilo mark. It's not bad when you consider break-even price in the Fish Protect system is about $4.50. Still, prices for barramundi are not what they used to be. Partly that's because at this time of the year, the northern pond farmers are harvesting their stock for pond cleaning. So there is a surplus. But the other side of the story is that the Fish Protect farmers are a victim of their own success. They can produce such an efficient and consistent supply that it appears they've flooded the market and brought the price down.
The prices I could see dropping with the barramundi into the marketplace, and there is a lot more barramundi being grown, and I thought, well, the returns are dropping away there, so we had to look to alternatives.
Adrian Matthews bought his fish farm 6 years ago. He and his wife Eleanor call their business Barra Fresh, but the truth is they're now looking at growing out fish other than barra to make their rather large investment pay. They've trialled sleepy cod, which is highly prized on Asian dinner tables and can fetch up to $30 a kilo.
Okay, I'm trying to prove that these are true sleepy cod. They're so sleepy that we can just lift them up and they'll sleep in my hand. Yes, very quiet.
Adrian and Eleanor have also set aside a few tanks to grow jade perch, also known as striped perch. It's native to South Australia's Cooper Creek region.
I like growing both varieties because they're very hardy fish. And they did suit our system quite well. The sleepy cod a bit slow. Jade perch, they were as fast as the barramundi in the initial stage, but then they slowed up a little bit.
In terms of growth, obviously.
Growth rate, yes. But a fair bit of that is our learning curve too. And so we felt, well, we can do better with them than what we have done with them, but we have produced something that's fairly good at any rate, I think.
The standout feature of the jade perch is that CSIRO scientists in Tasmania have identified it has an extremely high omega-3 fatty acid level, 6 times higher than that of Atlantic salmon. It could even be the highest of any fish anywhere. Omega-3 is seen as the heart helper, preventing blood clots and high blood pressure.
It's much more oilier fish than the barramundi. It has a more fat in it. I'm not expert in this, but I'd imagine a fair bit of that fat would be in some of the good parts of them too. And so, at any rate, with a oilier fish, it has to be treated different in the way they cook it.
Adrian admits it's going to take some education of the consumer to get people to buy an almost unknown. Then they have to learn the best way to prepare it. And marketing of aquaculture products has a way to go too. While these fish are fed what is essentially an all-organic feed, they live in a chemical-free environment and are purged thoroughly post-harvest, it's difficult to get a higher price than the wild fish fetch.
The farmer can do something very good, like most of our fish are grown without chemicals and without insecticides, without pesticides, without antibiotics. And by doing that, of course, we've got a much better product. But to get that message out to the consumer is very difficult because the farmers are not marketing people. They don't have that experience to bring that message out. And so, yeah, it is very difficult to get that message out that the product that comes out of a farm and which is properly controlled is actually a lot better than the product that comes from the sea.
With wild fisheries worldwide becoming over-harvested and in some cases terribly polluted, it's a message Johan Don is beginning to take internationally.
The Fish Protect technology first went overseas in 1994, when a demonstration model was sent to Taiwan. In the next few months, the company will start working on an enormous order from Sarawak in Malaysia. A private consortium there wants to produce 1,000 tonnes of fish a year from these units. That's the capacity of this shed multiplied 20 times over.
With government help, the Malaysians are building an entire fishing village, complete with jetties and fishing boats, research facilities, housing, and of course the land aquaculture units. Total investment is over $100 million US. About 30 million of that will be spent on the Fish Protect units, to be completely constructed in Australia, primarily South Australia.
The countries that are developing, like Malaysia, they see themselves as a country that has higher cost for production than, say, Thailand. So they want to have systems where there's less people required to run it, where there is more certified output so that they can actually export the product. So they're looking for the technology that can perform that.
A group in Vietnam is establishing a similar fishing village concept, and they're expected to place an even larger order with Fish Protect than the Malaysians have. Johan Don is well on the way to creating the sustainable, clean food source he dreamt of 3 decades ago.